In any given game of HOI4, there are a few things that happen that either make me want to just quit right then and there or just uninstall the game and never play it again. Keep in mind, this is not an exhaustive list of these kind of things, but just the ones that came to mind for the sake of this video. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so here's the first one, and it always happens with me. It's most notable if I'm playing a German game. This is the standard 1939 date. I haven't messed around too much. I like to assign my air wings to individual generals just so they follow them everywhere they go. Makes perfectly logical sense. So all these air wings, they all have their own missions they gotta do. They're attached to the right generals. So all our air wings are in position, and ideally, as soon as we start our invasion of Poland, they should do whatever the generals ask and follow the armies wherever they go. Correct? Well, okay, so far so good. The air wings are following the armies and they're doing what I told them to do. Okay, but what about after Poland's down and I'm ready to go after the Benelux region in France? Well, as you can see currently, I'm getting bombed. And I've reassigned my armies to go to line up in the west. Now they're there. What are my airframes doing? Apparently, we're still running air superiority missions and bombing Poland, even though we've already taken it out. So what does it take for them to actually get in position? It's not until they're actually invading that they finally decide to come over and do the mission. And even then, it takes them quite a while to realize that they should be on this other front. Again, we're in the middle of invading, and they're still hanging out in Poland. Why they haven't left is beyond me. Weird. Okay, I haven't seen this before, but in a 1939 start date, apparently Siam is already fascist and wants to join the Axis. That's new since the last time I played this. I literally only do 1939 start dates for these videos, by the way. And this leads me into the other thing that drives me nuts every game. We'll take over as the Italian player here. It almost always happens right about here, but you'll see what I'm talking about. For whatever reason, the front line almost always gets busted. This time it worked out, but a lot of times the front line will just collapse around this tile right here, and then they'll stop having a front line here, which, okay, you know, you can just redraw it. But then all that planning bonus I had goes away because it's technically a new front line in a new front line order. This isn't the only instance of this, though. I'll show you another one. Here's the other spot where this happens literally every game. For whatever reason out here in Crimea, once your troops get to here, they just walk past this border and don't seem to think that it's important to garrison the front lines here in the Crimean Peninsula. Just like that. It just disappears. Every single game. Okay, Italy's just declared war on Greece. This is the other place where I see this happen all the time. Also, why they declared war on Greece with literally one unit on the front line is beyond me. So right here is normally where it happens. And as you can see, as soon as they invade this tile, the front line disappears. You would think they'd have this game figured out by now, where if it kind of splits like this, they would at least keep a couple troops for a front line here. But nope. You have to constantly reassemble the front line every single time. This element, I might add, happens about 3 times in these tiles. It happens at this tile, and at this tile, and at this tile. So there it goes. They pushed into that tile. For whatever reason, we don't want a front line right here. I do not understand why. Speaking of another issue that usually you find when you play as Italy, because you tend to have a lot of puppets, I'm so tired of constantly having my puppets just hand me divisions I have never asked for. It gets particularly annoying because I find myself a lot of times I'll see this up here and just instinctually know my puppets have given me a bunch of divisions. So I'll shift click to select them all and then just immediately disband them. But sometimes I'll have units cooking up in the queue and like they'll be fully trained. And so I do that, the shift click and select everyone, put them in a group and delete them. And then boom, I've just deleted 10 units that were perfectly trained and ready to go to battle. And what's even worse is like late game when you get these units that you can never disband. And not only does the AI give you trash units you've never wanted, but they give you trash units that you cannot disband. That drives me nuts. Also, someone pointed out in my last video, and I had no idea. Usually when you try to do the diplomatic screen, you click on a random territory and then click who the state owner is or the foreign claims or whatever. Apparently you can just right-click states and it takes you to the diplomatic screen. I learned just as much about this game from the comments people leave as I do when I'm like pulling out the Excel sheet doing research about it. Okay, and here's one other frontline dynamic that just drives me nuts every single game. Okay, so I had Germany declare war on Yugoslavia. I'm playing as Italy, and I am not in the Axis. I have a non-aggression pact. I don't want to ask for military access, and I don't want to offer military access, simply because I don't want the game to automatically give them territory that I want. So we're on the same side now in a war together. And even though I have a non-aggression pact, look what happens to my front lines. For whatever reason, my army feels the need to split up my offensive line to garrison countries that I have non-aggression pacts with. Ideally, I'd like my entire army to stay focused on the active enemy, even though I have a non-aggression pact with Croatia, even though I have a non-aggression pact with Germany. So long as I'm not in their faction and do not ask for military access, every single time my front lines are going to snap on to a non-combatant. This right here is so frustrating. I shouldn't have to ask for military access in order for it to know I don't need 11 troops guarding 3 tiles of a neutral nation. Of a nation, in fact, that I am on the same side of in this war. And then one last thing is, I'm sure this wasn't as big of a deal before there was, 8, 10, 12 DLCs we have now. But the sheer number of events that pop up that are absolutely meaningless or irrelevant. Like here's an example of a useless world notification. The Great Palestinian Revolt. This event doesn't do anything. There's no decision that the Palestinian player takes. There's no hit to stability. It doesn't do anything for Palestine, and it doesn't do anything for the UK, who would reasonably have to clean up this mess. Other events that just come to mind that are just useless, especially with more DLC. If I'm playing a game as Poland, I don't need to know about an election in Paraguay or Uruguay or wherever it happens in this game. Like, oh, a fascist dictatorship. Like, this is just useless clutter. Well, if you don't like all those news articles, just take them off. Well, some of them are actually pretty important to how I'm positioning myself in my game plan. So I wish they would just make a 4th section here for regional news versus global news. So like, yeah, if I'm playing a Brazil game, tell me about the Paraguay elections. That's great. That's probably relevant to that playthrough. But if I'm playing as Poland, I don't need to know about South American elections. And keep in mind, I mostly play on a historical, and these get obnoxious. If you play a historical, the amount of global news bulletins just gets absurd. Anyways, those are just 5 of the things that drive me nuts. And if there's a way around them and I'm just ignorant of them, tell me I'm an idiot in the comments, and I will be forever grateful. Additionally, we can make videos like this very easily. So if there's other things like that bother you and you want me to cover them, leave your biggest HOI4 pet peeve in the comments.